Morning in Toronto starts cold and gray. Ottawa is pressing a tech giant over safety. And down south, tariffs are back at the center of Canada's economic planning. And later in the brief, a new study suggests there's a point where higher tariffs don't just hurt consumers. They can actually bring in less money. Toronto's weather first. It's cloudy and about -4 degrees Celsius right now, with a high near -2 today. And in local sports, the Maple Leafs get their captain back at a key moment. Auston Matthews is expected to return to the lineup Wednesday night against Tampa Bay after Olympic celebrations in Milan. The Leafs are heading into a tight pre-deadline stretch, 6 games in 9 days, and they're sitting 6 points out of a playoff spot. Toronto's expected to start Anthony Stolarz in goal tonight, with Joseph Woll lined up for Thursday against Florida. The immediate question isn't just Matthews' conditioning. It's whether this stretch forces management to decide quickly if they're buyers, sellers, or somewhere in between. Turning now to the bigger thread running through today's news. Canada is being told, more openly than in years, that access to the U.S. market may come with a built-in tariff price. Here's what's happening. A McMaster-led economic study modeled tariff impacts using global trade data, and it lands on a simple conclusion. Once tariffs get high enough, they stop doing what politicians say they do. The researchers estimate tariff revenue starts falling once tariffs rise above roughly 25%. In other words, there's a Laffer-curve effect for trade. Push the rate too high, imports drop, and the government can collect less, not more. Why it matters now is that this research is being discussed against a very live policy backdrop in the United States. The reporting frames it around a Supreme Court decision that struck down President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs, and around Trump's stated goal of using tariffs to replace income taxes as a major revenue source. The key point is this. The study argues U.S. tariff levels have moved past the revenue-maximizing range, meaning the pain to consumers and the broader economy can rise even as the fiscal payoff shrinks. Now put that beside what Canada's finance minister is signaling. François Philippe Champagne is effectively saying Ottawa's baseline assumption is changing, that shipping into the U.S. may require accepting an ongoing tariff, not just negotiating exemptions case by case. He argues Canada's overall effective tariff rate is still relatively low, around 4.9%, because of continental free trade carve-outs, but sector-by-sector tariffs remain a real vulnerability. Steel, aluminum, autos, and softwood lumber are still exposed. The risk here is less about any single tariff announcement and more about normalization. The idea that tariffs become a standing feature of the relationship, and that the upcoming Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement review becomes the place where that new reality is formalized. That review has a July 1st decision deadline. Extend, renegotiate, or let the deal lapse, because businesses will want clarity well before midsummer. A quick supporting signal on public mood. An Angus Reid Institute poll suggests 69% of Canadians want Canada to approach the U.S. cautiously, or even as a potential threat. Analysts say it points to a longer-lasting shift in attitudes, not just a reaction to one news cycle. And another supporting signal on the trade pressure campaign. Transport Canada has now certified Gulfstream's new G700 and G800 business jets, after the U.S. president publicly threatened decertification and tariffs tied to aircraft approvals. The FAA had previously flagged de-icing questions under probable icing conditions, and aviation experts doubt a president can unilaterally decertify aircraft. But the story is a reminder that trade leverage is being discussed alongside regulatory leverage, and the line between them can get blurry. Mid-episode reset. All of this is pointing to the same issue. Canada is heading into a trade renegotiation window where tariffs are being treated less like an emergency measure and more like a bargaining baseline. One more national item to note, because it intersects with public safety and regulation. Ottawa is confronting OpenAI after reports the Tumbler Ridge shooter had been banned from ChatGPT months before a February 10th mass killing, after the account was flagged for violent scenarios. Canada's AI Minister Evan Solomon summoned OpenAI safety representatives and says the government is considering options, including regulation, if companies don't bring forward concrete safety steps. Officials say OpenAI has agreed to come back with more detail. The core question here is what credible warning looks like in practice, and when platforms should escalate beyond internal review. In the final minute, here's what to watch next. First, on Canada-U.S. trade, the most important dates are the lead-up to that July 1st CUSMA review decision point, and any indication the U.S. is trying to lock in protective tariffs as a condition of market access. If you see language about baseline tariffs becoming permanent, that's the shift. Second, on the tariff economics, watch how U.S. policymakers respond to this idea that tariffs above a certain level can reduce revenue, not raise it. That's a direct challenge to the claim that tariffs can reliably replace income taxes. And third, for Toronto sports fans, Matthews' return starts a short, sharp stretch that can define the Leafs' trade deadline posture, not with one game, but with how the group looks over the next 9 days. That's the brief for Thursday, February 26th. Stay warm out there, and we'll be back with what changes and what becomes clearer.